I'm scared to even say this. Would you feel better if I just cut him out of my life?
It wasn't very fun. I really did not enjoy waking up alone.
Beeran did not need Laura to lose Michael. He only needed Laura to prove she was willing to lose Michael for him, and that is where this whole situation stops looking like simple heartbreak and starts looking like emotional pressure with a nice little relationship label on top. Laura was not walking back into that apartment from a strong place. She was walking back after waking up alone, after spending the night away from the space she had rented for both of them, after feeling exactly what Beeran said he wanted her to feel. Life without him. Welcome back to TLC Drama Files US. I'm Sabrine Rose, and if this kind of relationship power shift makes you pause, subscribe and tell me in the comments whether you think Beeran was setting a boundary or quietly testing how far Laura would bend. Because that is the real question here. Was this space or was this strategy? Beeran had every right to be hurt after learning Laura had not been fully honest about Michael, especially when the friendship was already sensitive, but the way he handled that hurt matters too. Because he did not simply step back and say he needed time, he let Laura sit in the discomfort long, enough to understand what losing him might feel like. And that is where guilt becomes leverage, because Laura returns already softened, already anxious, already trying to prove she still wants the relationship, while Beeran gets to stand there as the person who was wronged and now controls the emotional temperature of the room. Laura thinks she is coming back to fix the damage, but Beeran is not waiting with easy comfort, and that changes everything. Because the apartment is no longer just a place they were sharing, it becomes the place where Laura has to answer for Michael, for the hidden history, and for weather. Love now means surrendering something she was scared to lose. Beeran did not close the door on Laura, he left it open just wide enough for her to walk back in weaker. Michael was never just background noise in Beeran's mind, and honestly, Laura calling him just a friend was always going to sound different once the hidden kiss attempt came into the room and sat down like an unpaid bill. That one detail changed the whole shape of the friendship. Because Beeran was not reacting to a random male friend existing in Laura's life, he was reacting to finding out that the friendship had a history Laura did not fully place on the table. And that is where the problem gets sharper. Because Laura did not only hide an awkward moment from the past, she kept Beeran from making a clean choice about whether he was comfortable with Michael being that close. Now, to be fair, Laura's side is not hard to understand. She seems scared that if Beeran knew the full truth, he would shut down the friendship completely, so in her mind, she may have thought she was protecting something important before it got judged too harshly. But that is exactly the trap. Because if protecting the friendship required Beeran knowing less, then the friendship was already carrying a weight the relationship could not ignore. Laura wanted to keep Beeran and Michael in her life at the same time, but the version Beeran received was edited, softened, cleaned up, and that is why his hurt lands with force. The real question is not just why Laura hid it, it is whether she ever would have corrected the record if Michael had not exposed it first. Did Michael tell the truth because he felt guilty? Because he was pressured? Or because he wanted to protect himself once the tension got too obvious? And did Laura protect the friendship because it was innocent? Or because she knew the truth would make it look less innocent than she wanted to admit? Laura wanted both connections safe. But keeping both safe meant Beeran had to know less, and once Beeran hears that reasoning, he stops listening for promises and starts looking for proof. When Beeran says he cares about actions, not just words, the moment hits harder because Laura's words already lost some of their value the second Michael's hidden history came out. She can say she loves Beeran. She can say nothing is happening with Michael now. She can say her feelings are stronger than anything she ever felt for him, but Beeran is hearing all of that through the damage already done. And once someone feels misled, reassurance starts sounding less like comfort and more like damage control. That does not make Laura evil, because people hide messy truths for human reasons all the time. Fear, shame, panic, the desperate hope that if they avoid one hard conversation, the relationship will somehow stay peaceful. Because apparently, avoidance is still the official sport of romance. But Beeran's hurt is not imaginary. If Laura wanted him to trust her, he needed the version of the story that had not been trimmed down for his emotional convenience. So when he asks for actions, part of that demand feels fair. Because trust cannot be rebuilt by repeating the same words that were used while the full truth stayed hidden. The tricky part is what happens next, because a fair demand for accountability can quickly slide into emotional control if the person holding the pain starts deciding what the other person must sacrifice to be forgiven. That is where this scene becomes uncomfortable in the right way. Beeran has a reason to question Laura, but pain does not give anyone a permanent judge's chair in the relationship. The open question is what action would ever be enough for him? Would honesty be enough? Would distance from Michael be enough? Would Laura apologizing be enough? Or has Beeran already realized guilt gives him the upper hand? Laura senses words are failing, so she reaches for the biggest proof she has left, and suddenly Michael is no longer just the friend in the argument, he becomes the thing Laura may have to place on the table. When Laura offers to cut Michael out of her life, the whole argument changes shape, because this is no longer a simple apology. This is a sacrifice being placed directly in Beeran's hands. She is not just saying she is sorry anymore, she is offering to remove one of the biggest connections in her life to prove that Beeran matters more, and that is the moment where guilt stops sounding like regret and starts turning into surrender. Michael is no longer being discussed as a friend with messy history, he becomes the test, the price, the proof, the one thing Laura believes might finally make Beeran feel secure enough to stay. And this is where the scene becomes uncomfortable, because Beeran does not even have to demand it directly. Laura offers it herself, which tells you she understands the emotional weight in the room. She knows words are not landing. She knows the hidden kiss attempt damaged the way Beeran sees Michael. She knows her explanation did not fully repair the trust. So she reaches for the biggest possible gesture, but the question is whether that gesture comes from love, panic, guilt, damage control, or some messy combination of all of them trying to look mature while the relationship quietly catches fire. The most dangerous part is not whether Beeran accepts the offer. The dangerous part is that Laura made it. Because once she says she is willing to cut Michael off, Beeran learns something bigger than whether she regrets hiding the truth. He learns how far she might go when she is afraid of losing him. Maybe Laura means it. Maybe she expects Beeran to stop her. Maybe Michael exposing the truth made her feel less loyal to him. But now, Beeran is silent. And in that silence, he is holding both relationships in his hands. Beeran's pause after Laura offers to cut Michael off is where the scene becomes more interesting than a simple forgiveness moment. Because on the surface, his refusal looks calm, mature, even generous, but underneath, in my opinion, it also gives him the cleanest possible win. If Beeran tells Laura to end the friendship, he risks looking controlling, and the whole argument shifts from Laura's hidden truth to Beeran deciding who she is allowed to keep in her life. But by saying he does not want her to cut Michael off, Beeran gets the image of being reasonable while still learning the most important thing he needed to know. Laura was willing to do it. That is why this moment feels so loaded. Beeran may genuinely care about Laura's happiness, and yes, he may truly believe Michael can stay in her life if boundaries are clearer, but there is also a second reading here, and reality TV lives for second readings because apparently one clean motive would be too emotionally nutritious. Beeran now gets to stand in the forgiving position. He can say he trusted her enough to let Michael remain. He can say he made the bigger choice. He can say he accepted the one person who made him uncomfortable. And Laura, whether she feels relief or not, also leaves that conversation carrying emotional debt. That is the quiet danger. Michael stays, but now Michael's presence can become a receipt Beeran pulls out whenever trust gets shaky again. Was this sincere forgiveness, or forgiveness with conditions? Was Beeran protecting the relationship, or building a future advantage without having to say it out loud? His earlier plan was to make Laura feel what life without him would be like. And it worked, because she came back ready to prove herself. Now his refusal makes him look like the bigger person, but Beeran did not have to win the Michael argument, because Laura's offer already handed him the win. Laura keeps Beeran, Michael stays in the picture, and for a second it almost looks like the storm has passed, but that is the trick with this kind of peace, because silence after an argument does not always mean balance has returned. Peace means the fight stopped. Balance means both people still have equal footing after the fight. And with Laura and Beeran, the argument may have cooled down, but the power did not land evenly. Because Beeran now knows Laura was willing to give up Michael to keep him, while Laura knows Beeran can turn distance into pressure and still come out looking calm. That is why the patch-up feels soft on the surface and tense underneath. Beeran has moral credit now. Laura has guilt sitting on her shoulder like an unpaid emotional invoice. Michael remains in the picture, but he is no longer just Michael. He is the name attached to the secret, the offer, the sacrifice, and the moment Laura almost gave him up. So even if everyone smiles, even if the relationship moves forward, the question is whether Michael's presence will stay harmless or become the quiet weapon that returns every time trust gets shaky. Laura walked in trying to prove love. She walked out with less room to move. That is the reversal. She may feel relieved because Beeran did not force her to choose, but relief is not the same as freedom. And forgiveness is not clean if one person leaves the room feeling permanently behind on the scorecard. Will Laura start over-explaining every friendship now? Will Beeran heal? Or will his hurt harden into control? Maybe Michael was never the biggest threat. Maybe the real warning was what Laura and Beeran revealed about how they handle pain. The uncomfortable truth is that both Laura and Beeran were using control, just in different outfits. Laura controlled information by keeping Michael's full history softer than it needed to be, and Beeran controlled consequences by turning his hurt into a test Laura had to pass. That is why this argument does not feel like one person messed up and the other person reacted. It feels like two people protecting themselves in ways that quietly damage the trust they say they want to rebuild. Laura's hidden truth was not harmless. Beeran's pain was not fake. Those two things can be true at the same time, because adult relationships are apparently not content with being emotionally simple for even 5 minutes. Laura tried to keep two emotional doors open, then looked shaken when Beeran found the hallway. Beeran took a real wound and built rules around it, then acted like those rules were the same thing as love. That is where the whole dynamic starts feeling less like repair and more like negotiation. And negotiation is not always bad, but when trust becomes a bargain, every soft moment starts carrying a hidden price. Is Laura apologizing because she understands the damage or because she is scared of losing Beeran? Is Beeran asking for reassurance, or does he need to know he can still make her bend? Does Laura know the difference between privacy and omission? Does Beeran know the difference between a boundary and punishment? That is why the patch-up still feels unsafe. They both got something they wanted. Laura got Beeran back. Beeran got proof that Laura would choose him under pressure. But if both people walk away with what they wanted, why does the relationship still feel like one more secret, one more argument, or one more test away from breaking again? Michael matters here, but not because this is his story. He matters because his reveal forced the truth into the room after Laura had already shaped the version Beeran was living with, and once that attempted kiss detail came out, Laura lost control of the explanation. Before that, Michael could be framed as the harmless best friend, the close connection, the person Beeran was supposed to accept without making it a big deal. After that, the friendship had history, and history changes how everything feels, even when nothing current is proven. That is where Beeran's discomfort becomes harder to dismiss. This does not prove Michael and Laura had anything happening in the present, and nobody needs to invent extra drama when the air tension is already doing overtime like a reality TV intern with no lunch break. But it does prove Beeran was not reacting to nothing. Michael was close to Laura, emotionally present in her life, and tied to a past moment Laura had not fully explained, so when Beeran hears the truth from someone else, the friendship stops feeling like a normal boundary issue and starts feeling like a story Beeran was late to understand. The harder question is whether Michael would have stayed quiet if the pressure had not reached that point. And once he told Beeran, did Laura's loyalty toward him shift because he exposed the one thing she had been trying to manage? That is the messy part, because Laura wanted Michael kept in her life, but Michael's reveal made keeping him harder. If a friendship needs editing before a partner hears about it, maybe the edit is the warning sign. Now Michael stays. Beeran says he forgives, and Laura returns to the relationship, but the cost has not fully arrived yet. Because the next time Beeran sees Michael's name, the next time Laura explains a boundary, the next time trust gets tested, this secret will not feel like old news. It will feel like a receipt waiting to be used. Michael matters in this story, but he is not the center of it. He is the trigger that forced Laura and Beeran to deal with the truth Laura had been managing for too long. Once Michael shared the attempted kiss detail, Laura lost control over the version of the story Beeran had been living with, and that is why the whole friendship suddenly looked different. Before that reveal, Michael could be presented as the close friend, the harmless friend, the person Laura wanted Beeran to accept without too many questions. After that reveal, Michael became the friend with history, and history has a nasty habit of making every innocent explanation sound a little less clean. This does not prove anything current was happening between Laura and Michael, and inventing extra drama would be lazy, even by reality TV commentary standards, where some people treat speculation like a full-time career. But it does prove Beeran's discomfort was not coming from nowhere. Michael's place in Laura's life was already close, already emotionally loaded, and already tied to a past moment Laura did not fully explain. So when Beeran heard it from Michael instead of Laura, the problem stopped being only the kiss attempt, and became the question of why Laura did not trust Beeran with the truth first. And that leaves the hardest question hanging over the whole repair. Would Michael have stayed quiet if the pressure had not built? Did Laura feel betrayed by him after he exposed the secret? Will Beeran ever see this friendship as safe again? Because if a friendship needs editing before a partner hears about it, maybe the edit is the warning sign. Michael stays, Beeran forgives, Laura returns, but the emotional bill has not fully arrived yet. By this point, the easy answer would be to pick one villain and call it a day, but this story is messier than that. Because Beeran can be a wounded partner, a strategic partner, or both at the same time, and Laura can be dishonest, scared, or both at the same time. Beeran had a fair reason to question her after the Michael truth came out, because nobody wants to find out their partner's close friendship has a hidden romantic wrinkle after being told it was harmless. Laura also had a human reason to fear losing Michael, because some friendships become emotional safety nets before people admit how complicated they are. But good reasons do not erase bad methods. Laura's fear does not make hiding the truth clean. Beeran's hurt does not make emotional pressure automatically fair. That is why the hotel night still feels questionable. Because was it a boundary? Or was it punishment with nicer packaging? Laura's offer to cut off Michael still feels loaded. Because was it love, or panic, or guilt trying to buy peace? Beeran's refusal still feels complicated. Because was it generous, or strategic, or both wearing the same calm face? That is the part that makes this relationship feel sadder than simple drama. Both of them seem less secure than they want to appear. Laura wants forgiveness, Beeran wants proof, and Michael becomes the object they keep using to measure loyalty. The scariest part is not the fight. The scariest part is how quickly guilt and leverage became acceptable furniture in the relationship. Laura's hidden truth did not only hurt Beeran, it handed him control, and by the end of this conversation, that control matters more than the secret itself. Beeran did not need Michael gone to win the argument. He needed to know Laura would choose him over Michael if the pressure got heavy enough, and once Laura put that offer on the table, the balance had already shifted. That is why this was never only about cheating suspicion, friendship boundaries, or one exposed detail from the past. This was about trust breaking, power moving in, and forgiveness becoming risky when one person leaves the fight carrying emotional debt. And to be fair, nothing here is simple. Beeran might genuinely love Laura. Laura might genuinely love Beeran. Michael might truly stay only a friend. But the pattern still looks dangerous because Laura hides when she wants to keep her choices open, and Beeran applies pressure when he wants those choices narrowed. One conversation, one apology, or one soft reunion does not erase that pattern. Because patterns do not disappear after a hug, they usually wait for the next argument to audition again. Because apparently relationships also enjoy sequels. Beeran's hotel plan worked because Laura came back softer. Laura's offer changed everything because it proved she would sacrifice. Beeran's refusal looked kind, but it also gave him moral credit, and Michael was never the real center of the problem. He was the trigger. The real issue was trust becoming a tool for control. So the question now is not whether Laura and Beeran patch things up. The question is what Laura does next. Does she protect the relationship with honesty and stronger boundaries? Or does her next choice prove Beeran's power over her has already started growing?